The talk I'm going to be talking about today is a talk by Johanna Blakley, who is a fashion designer. She gave this talk at TEDx USC. So in her lecture, the main point that Johanna talks about is the differences between the fashion industry and copyrighted industries such as film or music in their intellectual property. To begin with, she touches on some issues that face the fashion world. First of which is the role of patents in fashion. And what she simply says is that there aren't any IP protections in fashion, and the US Patent and Trademark Office reasons that because their designs are too utilitarian to be patentable, there's no way to give designers art and protection for their own designs. Basically, there's no fundamental way for designers to patent their own designs and protect themselves from their designs being copied. So for many of you that know, knockoff clothing is a huge market for those who want to wear the best styles without really paying a lot. So Blakely basically compares and contrasts the knockoff product to the real deal. And she says that in fashion explicitly, there are kind of small differences between the expensive designs and their imitations. And the reason why these kind of name brand products such as Gucci, Prada, Dolce and Gabbana sell for thousands of dollars where the knockoffs sell for $15 or $20 is that the replicas don't use as nice fabrics and materials. So whereas the design might be the same, Prada might be using the finest Italian leather that they can find, whereas the cheap Chinese knockoff or the cheap East Asian knockoff or the cheap knockoff from wherever it's coming from is using plastic or faux leather instead of actual real hide. And so the type of clothing and the type of product or fashion product that each type of clothing has is a market in which the um, fashion industry has found a way to kind of differentiate itself, where the ultra high fashion, really high expensive materials kind of have their place at the top end, whereas the designs, if you want to have at a more affordable cost, can be had just with cheaper materials. And the way that kind of she compares the fashion industry to markets such as film and music is kind of based on the aspects of copyrights. So she says that print, film, music, and literature are all protected by intellectual property. So it should naturally follow that these industries are more successful because companies are able to keep their own products to themselves and not have to deal with, uh, you know, these knockoffs and have to compete with them. But Blakely actually shows that it's the opposite, and that industries not protected by property rights, such as the fashion and the culinary arts, soar past copyrightable industries in regards to sales. So even though the fashion industry isn't eligible for direct copywriting or intellectual property protection, it still brings in billions of dollars of revenue as compared to the film and music industry, and is constantly progressing in terms of creativity and innovation because, uh, as we talked about in the previous video, you're able to remix everything because there's no intellectual property protection. My opinion is that she believes fashion to be the leading innovative segment in the world, and I can see why. She's a fashion designer. It would naturally say, you know, make sense that she would say that fashion is the most kind of out there kind of leading segment, but the numbers are that she talks about are formally misleading. She uses global consumption numbers not of high fashion but of all clothing purchased, and as many know, um, few films, music, and literature are not basic necessities, but rather luxuries purchased by only the rich and in well-developed countries. In third world countries, people have kind of don't have the money or don't have the means or don't have the time to go in and watch a movie every day or go in and watch films and listen to music or read nice books because they don't have the education, they don't have the ability to, or they don't have the money. But clothing is a necessity, and because she isn't delineating between high fashion and knockoffs or cheap clothing, she's lumping it all into the clothing segment. Everybody needs to wear clothes. That's just simply how global society works. No matter who you are, you're wearing clothes and you're buying it from somewhere. So those numbers are factually misleading because she's comparing a necessity to a commodity and saying that because the necessity sells more, it's somehow better than the commodity, without realizing that the commodity is an option, while as the necessity is not. And so obviously the sales are going to be imbalanced in that way. But she does have some good points. She is correct in the fact that it's there is an ability to differentiate yourself in the materials that you use, even if you don't have intellectual property of the designs itself. So I think Johanna Blakley gives a great talk at TEDx USC, but it is to take in with a grain of salt, much like pretty much any talk that you'll ever see. There are positives and negatives, and everybody's going to spin it their way. But yeah, that is my spin and my summary of Johanna Blakley's talk at TEDx USC on fashion design and intellectual property.